To Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host.
Hey, it's time to get it on. Welcome aboard, everybody. Appreciate you being with us on this Tuesday. It's November 7th, Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on another beautiful day expected here, man, up into the 70s. Wow. All I could do was watch it through the window yesterday, but another big lineup today. Mike DeCourcy, of course, will be with us. Mike Nizilik from the Bloomington Herald-Times, Chronic Hoosier, and my original producer, Justin Kaelin, as we are still celebrating our 1,500th episode. Well, we're past that now, but and over 2 million views on YouTube. So thanks to everybody for all of that, but we'd like to celebrate a little bit. Hope everybody's having a great start to their day. Those of you that are following us on radio, we appreciate everybody down on the Ref 97.7 ESPN. Always the right call. Up in the region, the voice of the region, WJLB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, across in Fort Wayne on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 to Fan. And make sure you stay tuned after Indiana Sports Beat. Brett Rump Sports will be coming to you. And if you're on YouTube, appreciate you hitting us up early and often. And if you're not subscribed, you need to be a subscriber. Cost you nothing. When we greatly appreciate it. Appreciate everybody already on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. The best in new and used vehicles. Just go to andymoorehonda.com and get more to your door. Fred jumping on. David. A new face or a new name. John W. Sunny Brown, Southern Brown County. Bob down in Georgetown. Doug. He saw him out at the show last night at Chop Shop and talked him getting the ketchupino, spicy ketchup. Love it. Las Vegas Larry. Jamie from Grand Rapids. Our Indiana Creek Walker. It's his second favorite day of the year outside of Selection Sunday. College basketball underway. Fred pointing out Rutgers, Oklahoma State, as well as Michigan State upset in their first games. Yeah, we'll talk about that as college basketball got underway last night. Continues tonight, Indiana, with a game on the schedule. Indiana Creek Walker said Indiana could be the second best team in the Big Ten right now. Yeah, we'll see about that. Don't take early losses for granted. That stuff comes around. Jamie thinks MSU might be rated. Nah, they've got a lot of good talent. You just can't judge it by early on. Look, just think about Indiana, the first half that Indiana played against UND. It looked ugly. They didn't finish the game, but of course UND is not at that. There you go. Indiana, he said right now. Right. I agree with you. But yeah, lots to get to. Indiana football, Tom Allen. Of course, they have an opportunity to win out, go to a bowl game, and extend his contract. Indiana basketball starts the season tonight against Florida Gulf Coast. Michigan. The story, the saga continues as we'll get to that. The Big Ten is saying, not so fast, my friend. Dairy Queen decision looming. We don't know. We don't have a date yet, but it's got to be coming soon. It could actually be announced any day. He has not made any formal date announcement for that. The NCAA has joined Central Michigan in their investigation on who that was on our sideline. who that is. How about Colorado? Remember all the talk about Dion and how it was just such an incredible, oh my God, hey, it's things aren't so peachy out there right now. He's made a bunch of coaching changes that coaches around the country are like, what in the hell are you doing? They've lost 3 straight. Not going quite so well for them right now. Michigan State, one of the teams to lose on opening night as they lose to James Madison, 79-76 in overtime at home in East Lansing there. I believe they were 1 of 20 on 3-point field goal attempts. They are the first AP team, top 5 team, to lose their home opener versus an unranked team since Kentucky lost to Western Kentucky way back in 2001. We'll talk about a lot of that with our guest today, Mike DeCourcy, joining us, like I said, later on from the Sporting News. And looking very forward to talking to him about this Michigan thing, it is not going away. So, tons of things to get to on the docket, and looking forward to it. How's everybody doing? Indiana football, they have 3 games left, winnable games. But that would mean they've won 4 straight games, and that hasn't happened, I'm thinking, since COVID. And before that, not sure how long you got to go back for that to have happened. And just a reminder myself, I forgot, Chronic Hoosier's not on today. He is on assignment, so he will not be joining us. But we greatly appreciate him. And thinking about he's just dealing with a minor thing, a health thing for a family member. So thinking about them while we're doing that today. But so basketball season is here tonight. Game time, or the game for Indiana, as they will take on Florida Gulf Coast to kick off their season. Former Zionsville basketball player playing on that squad. So that's going to be got to be a pretty cool thing for him to play in Assembly Hall. Seems like we see that a lot each year, especially, and not just those guys, but when teams come in and you see them, cameras out, filming stuff. And I think you'll see a little bit more of that this year because of Bob Knight. I know that it's people have asked why is Indiana not doing something for Bob Knight? And I saw a great idea yesterday that would be to name that entire complex that encompasses the Simon Scott Assembly Hall, Cook Hall, even Gladstein Fieldhouse, which is right behind Cook Hall, a former arena for IU basketball, should be named maybe the Bob Knight Center or something. And I'm sure that they'll come up with that, but that's a great idea. I've got the greatest name in the world. I'm going to keep this name to myself because this name is good, but I'm going to hold on to that one for right now.
Hey, speaking of great ideas, there's a concert coming to Memorial Stadium. You said they need to start having concerts there.
I kept asking, okay, what's screwing me up? I've heard commercials, but I kept hearing them refer to it as IU Stadium. And I'm like, where the hell is this? What are they talking about? What's IU Stadium? I'm serious. I heard commercials and I'm like going, I don't know where IU Stadium is. I go, where in the hell is this venue? They're not calling it Memorial Stadium in the ads, per my memory at least. Who is Kane Brown?
Yeah, country singer Kane Brown, if you want to call it country. It's more like pop music. Kane Brown and John Party with Jesse Murph and our friend Clayton Anderson.
Well, right. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to text Clayton. When is this?
This is, first of all, it's called the Full Ride Tour. And this is April 13th in the spring.
Oh, great.
Next spring.
Okay. Yeah. So, what a great idea. What a great idea to use a venue that gets no use in the spring. Now, if you really want to, I know Kane Brown, I guess, is a name now. I don't listen to what you would say call modern country music.
It's Chris Denary country. He says he loves all that stuff. Remember we talked to him a few weeks ago. He said he likes this kind of country.
Yeah. I do know who John Party is, but since I don't listen to that, I definitely know who Clayton Anderson is. So that would be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of audience numbers they get there. Of course, you don't have to fill the stadium. It's probably going to be set up towards one side of the stadium, I'm guessing. I would imagine, like toward the press box side, the stadium set up close to the deal, which would be fine. I've seen John Mellencamp at Memorial Stadium. That was his first stadium concert. That was way back in the 80s, late 80s, I think. But yeah, they don't do that. And it's just, I don't get it. Why not? So you're welcome, Indiana, for, I'm going to take credit.
I'll give you the credit. You've been talking about it for the last year and a half, I feel like.
Yeah, it's and I'm going to reach out to our buddy Clayton. We'll get him on to talk about that. But of course, that's a long way out. But yeah, cool.
Break.
We've got to take a break. When we come back, Mike DeCourcy will join us. And man, oh man, I've got plenty to throw at him, especially with this Michigan thing, even the Colorado, because it's not that he wasn't a fan of Deion. He wasn't a fan of how Deion was making it so much about him. And Howie was also at that concert. So very cool. Yeah, that's been a minute, but that was fun. I hit the wrong one, didn't? Yeah, no, I got it up there. Harry saw Mellencamp in Memorial Stadium. It was 86. Okay. Yeah, I was close. We got more coming up here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Thank you. Thoughts to your son. All righty. I cannot wait to get my new chair. Gosh, dang it. Feel like this one's pushing me forward down all the time. Da, 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 da.
Today's going to be my last day of yard work, and I'm excited to be done with that for the year.
Well, I would imagine, but it's pretty nice out there. I mean,
it'll be nice. I'm just excited that this is. I mean, it's only going to be nice.
You think it's not going to grow one more week?
It's already been slowing down. I haven't cut the grass in probably like.
Well,
2
I'm
weeks.
sure it's slowing down, but it's going to be down to it's only getting down into the 50s.
November. Well, usually the last 2 years, once November hits, I usually have one more cut in me, and that's today for me, and that's about it. unless it stays warm. If it stays warm and keeps raining, then it might change. But I don't.
Hey, what about what I mentioned to you about what you on your little podcast that you guys do about doing that here?
I mean, yeah, as long as you have a voicemail line, we can do that.
I do.
I thought we talked about that before, and we just didn't want to, or you didn't want to fool with it.
Well, not live. Voicemails are different. So yeah, that would be cool to be able to take calls in voicemail fashion.
Like, do it on the last segment of the show, like just take calls or something like that.
Well, not live.
Or even, it doesn't even have to be last segment. It's just an example. You know what I mean?
They can, when the show starts, we'll say, hey, you call in, leave a voicemail, and we'll grab it.
Yep.
Yes,
I can just screen them during the show.
That's right.
All right, here we go.
What is Jeffrey Greek going through right now? I wonder.
What about Greek?
He's got to be having a miserable year. Iowa just.
I don't know. Yeah, well, I'm going to try to have him on this week. All right, here we go.
Remember, call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, November 7th. Man, oh man, is it a great day, and you want to make it better, add a little dash of Mike DeCourcy to it, and poof, and we do just that. How are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. How are you?
I am a lot better than Jim Harbaugh, I can tell you that. Yeah, I'm doing great. Lots of fun things to talk about. College football is really becoming, boy, as the season starts to climb down, it's like a vice. It starts to squeeze teams. It starts to squeeze coaches. If you look at Deion Sanders, man, I know that we earlier and it wasn't that you weren't a fan of his. You talked about, him making it kind of too much about him and this and that. And that seems to be kind of crumbling a bit now. The house of Primes, I don't want to say it's crumbling, but there are cracks in the foundation and making some odd coaching changes that coaches around the country are like, dude, what are you doing? And they look terrible after making that change the other night. They were as bad as they could have been offensively, and that has to make his decision making on that even worse. Although they didn't get beat badly, they were in that game, but they just produced nothing. But he's, I guess you would just call that growing pains.
Well, I think so. I'm surprised, honestly, unless there was something that we're unaware of. If it was just, X and O, that sort of thing, to make a move that quickly, I don't think it's ever a wise move to do something in the middle of the first year that dramatic. I think that's the issue that I would have with it, unless there was something that happened that said, we can't continue to work together. And those things do happen. I mean, who knows, right? But I think that when you're building a foundation for a program, and remember, this is his first year, and these guys are all basically more or less in their first year, certainly in their first year with him, and a lot of them are in their first year at Colorado. A big chunk of the team is in their first year at Colorado. So I think that the question that I have is why you would make a dramatic move like that when you're trying to build a foundation for something. There's an art to that. And it's really not an easy thing to do, to try to build a program from essentially a state of zero. We saw Tom Crean do that here in Indiana with some degree of success. I mean, came in with essentially no scholarship players from the prior year's team by the time they threw the ball up in the air in the first fall practice. They had one capable walk-on, and everybody else was new. And within 4 years, 5 years, they won the league. 4 years, they were in the Sweet 16. Mick Cronin at Cincinnati did the same at Cincinnati. He had one scholarship player when he began his first practice, and that player was a senior, so he only had him for a year. But you build the foundation, and I think that's, I know there's a sense now that with this instant gratification concept of the transfer portal, that everything should happen faster. And maybe faster is true, but immediate is nearly impossible. I mean, you can get a lot better, but you can't get there, if you know what I mean, Jim.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And they are learning. I guess Dion, he's had his own way that he's going to do things, but I think that there's just a learning curve for him. This is at a different level, man. He's playing against talent that, although he has talent on his team, their offensive line must not be all that good, because Shadur Sanders is always running for his life, and they're not being able to run the ball. So, growing pains. I'll just chalk it up to that. Speaking of someone who's not had growing pains, but many other pains, Jim Harbaugh. He has been in the crosshairs over and over for things that have been going on at Michigan over the last couple of years, especially. His first 7 years didn't go well, losing to Ohio State every year, not getting to where that they wanted to get. Now this scandal seems to be right over the period of their last 2 years of success. The NCAA has joined Central Michigan investigating the possibility of Stallions being on their sideline. More importantly, the Big Ten has sent a formal notification to Michigan that potential disciplinary action is coming their way. And that would be something that I would find surprising, but I think Tony Petitti has been forced into this, although he probably would rather not, because they would rather have the best chance possible of getting one, possibly two teams into the college football playoffs. And so he's trying to balance this act of, but it's too much. He can't. This is something that just cannot be ignored. People want to. The president really cracked me up with basically begging. I think you should really wait for the NCAAs to come. Well, of course you want the NCAA to come out. It'll be 4 years from now when everybody's gone and the NCAA doesn't even exist. But things are. I don't know if it will affect them or not, but this could have major implications.
One thing I'll say about this, Jim, that I don't hear a lot from others is I think that this is becoming too much centered on Jim Harbaugh. That's our cult of personality in college sports. It's all, it's not just about Jim Harbaugh. This is a Michigan football problem right now. This is the Michigan University Wolverines football program's problem. It's not just the head coaches. And I think that it's all the discourse is too focused on the head coach. And it's partly because he's a famous head coach and because he's, I don't know, let's use the word quirky. And not necessarily the most engaged with the media, and therefore easy for the media to criticize because they know he's not coming back at them because he's not paying attention to them. But this, to me, is much more about what transpired in Michigan football over the last 2 years. And obviously you can't do anything about or do much. You can't do anything to impact what happened in the last 2 years. But based on what we're aware of, if it, and I don't have proof, right? I mean, we just have media reports. But if what is being alleged is proved to the satisfaction of the Big Ten Conference, then games that happened this year were impacted by the apparatus that was in place, allegedly. And that's to me, I think that we have to understand the integrity of the competition is foremost. I mean, when we see, I mean, I watched the documentary. I think it was a Netflix documentary a couple of weeks ago about the shaving scandal at Arizona State in the 90s. Now, this is not that. Don't get me wrong. But what the fundamental, but there is something that they share, and that is the integrity of the competition. The competition has to be fair. If it's not fair, then it's not worth following. And so that's why the commissioners of the various leagues and the NCAA, to the extent that it has, have always worked so hard to keep gambling influence out of the sport itself. And so because the integrity of the competition is so important. And that's what with the Michigan allegations, we've not seen anything like this really in high profile sports. I don't know what happened in field hockey or tennis or whatever else going on out there. Not claiming an expertise on that. But in men's basketball and football, we've never seen anything like this. You know, I mean, your joke about the NCAA taking 4 years is fair, but remember, this is not like what the NCAA has investigated in the past. The NCAA's investigations have always been about player acquisition and or retention. That's always been what it's about. Almost and in some cases, academic issues. Those are the only two areas that we've ever seen them required to investigate. We don't know how they would handle this because there's essentially no precedent, at least high profile. There may have been something out there that happened in Patriot League or something. Who knows? I don't want to impugn the Patriot League, but that's the first league that came to mind. But there may have been something that happened in some league out there somewhere that weren't. But this is big time. This is the Big Ten. This is one of the biggest brands in the sport. It's one of the 3 or 4 or 5 biggest brands in football that's involved in this. So it's really important that the league get it right and that the NCAA, if they have anything to say about it after the league rules, and they often don't, but if the NCAA has anything to say about it, that they get it right. Because the integrity of the competition is what's in question here. Again, I'm not asserting that anything has happened. I'm only going based on what we've read and the terrific reporting by people like Pete Thamel and Pat Forty, Larry Lage up in the AP in Michigan. The reporting that they've done has cited these allegations, and it's up to the Big Ten Conference and the NCAA possibly to establish whether anything happened. But again, like I said, what's at stake is the fundamental integrity of the competition. When a school back in the, let's say, the old days of 2015 bought a player, that player still had to go out and play. I mean, it certainly helped to get the player, but it didn't make you any better if the player didn't play well. I mean, this is different. This is about the game itself.
Yeah, the Big Ten and their place, because while a lot of this has happened within the conference, these games, there were games allegedly that were their potential college football playoff opponents. And that just makes it the widest scope possible. And that puts a black eye on the Big Ten. Forget about what it does to Michigan. I don't care. A lot of people don't care. This puts a black eye on the Big Ten. And it makes it a little more suspect. Not that people think that other teams are doing that, but it's just not a good look for the league, and especially if the league doesn't do something about it, because no one, will be honest, no one expects the NCAA to do anything in a timely manner of which it affects like this year's team, not the players. They had nothing to do with it, but it's still.
Hold on. Can I interrupt that? People keep saying that, well, should we punish the players? Look, if this happened, again, not saying it did, can't say, don't have that in front of me. But if this happened, the players were among those, they were among the most significant to gain an advantage as a result of what happened. So I don't say, oh, well, can't hurt them, can't punish them. If it happened, then they were beneficiaries of it. So if they gained an advantage competitively in any games this year, then it would follow that they should somehow be disadvantaged in any games that are subsequent to a penalty being handed down. And up to and including, you can play, but you can't play. You can play the ones on your schedule, but you can't play anymore. That would be the most severe punishment that would be available. But I don't know that that's one that's in the purview of the Big Ten. That would have to probably come from the NCAA. And as you said, especially since the Big Ten is ruling first, it would be hard for the NCAA to move quickly enough subsequent to that to establish a postseason penalty.
I agree with you 100% because generally what happens is it's teams that are after the fact, sometimes 2 to 3 years later, that are affected. And I think that that's totally bogus. This team is the one that should be the one that receives the penalty. And while the players themselves may not have been involved, doesn't matter. It's this team. So that's the one that should be affected. I agree 1,000%. We got to take a quick break. We've got lots more to get to here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We got the great Mike DeCourcy with us from the Sporting News. Make sure you're giving him a follow. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
College basketball getting kicked off. I've already seen it's going to be a fun year. Purdue's been beat. Michigan State's been beat already.
You can't include the exhibition. That's not really. I mean, yeah, they lost, but it was also to like a regular team.
John, I'm neutral, but I went to Indiana. They lost. I'm like Lee Corso. If you ever watch Lee Corso on Saturday Game Day, when they bring up the predictions, and anytime it's Purdue, it doesn't matter who they're playing. He goes, anybody but Purdue. They could be playing St. Mary's School of whatever, and he's like, anybody but Purdue. He cracks me up. You got to love that spirit that he still has. I love that. And Arkansas is a very good team. Coached very well with a very good coaching staff. Musselman's been building that. I mean, hell, he's had that going for a couple of years. Next coach at Kentucky, Mike?
I think he would be too, potentially.
That's a possibility. Yeah, it depends on how long John wants to go.
How long he wants to continue. Yeah, he's going a different route this year with his recruiting because he's like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Now he went to the portal, that didn't work. Now he's back to getting top recruits, number one recruiting class right now, I believe. Fans are on his
not in 24. He's not.
No, what did I read?
The 23 team was, but 24 Duke's not getting caught. I mean, after they got Cooper.
Oh no! Oh my God! They've got then they got another 5-star after Cooper.
Yeah, big guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, nobody. I think they've got three 5-stars and a 4-star.
Yeah, this is going to be one of their better classes at Duke.
But it's going to be a fun year. And man, I love those great games that are early, even though I hate that it's early because teams are still not like, I'll take Indiana, for example. There's no way they're going to be at the level of UConn and Kansas when they have to play them, but tough luck.
Well, they get Kansas at home though, so
they do have
that's an advantage. That we've seen Assembly Hall, we've seen the might of Assembly Hall on display on occasion. That one on a Saturday afternoon, that'll be a good one. The students might be letting out then, but I don't think that'll matter. I think they'll
no.
I think they'll come back.
10 seconds. You can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by WOW Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, November 7th. Thanks a lot for being with us, as always. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at indiehomepros.com. Mike, I'm looking at a piece that you wrote yesterday. Looks like college basketball rankings. Duke, UConn, Kansas lead the sport, which, you could probably take 10 different top 25s, and those 3 are going to be in there no matter what. Kansas is probably at the top of most of them, but I don't think it really matters right now. I don't know that you can separate them. Purdue, of course, up there, but Purdue already been shown to be mortal, but this is early, so nothing matters in that regard. But before I get to that, we haven't been able to talk to you since the passing of Bob Knight. You are someone who has been around and was around for a long time. People from IU, they're going to give their side, and his coaching genius, it cannot be denied. His success, it cannot be denied. The things he accomplished cannot be denied. We all know that he had his demons and whatnot, but he was just a gigantic shadow, and I don't mean that in a bad way, in a good way, over college basketball because of his there are icons and there are icons, and he is an icon of a sport and of sports in general. There's not many coaches that you would see being brought on to David Letterman and things like that. Bob Knight was. There's not many coaches that you would see were in movies. Bob Knight was in Anger Management, of course, and Blue Chips, but appropriately, the clip in Anger Management is awesome. But just because of who he was, and he was a very I'm losing the word I'm looking for, but he was a very enigmatic figure.
Oh, he certainly was. It's hard to understand why he chose some of the courses that he chose when he was so obviously brilliant and so obviously accomplished. It's hard to say why he chose at times to be unkind in certain circumstances. But he certainly was, and he was an enormous figure. He was iconic. And you talked about Blue Chips, a movie that I really loathed, by the way. But one of the many things I loathed about it was that in choosing, in designing the character of the coach, Nick Nolte decides to copy the iconic coach and not the typical coach. You know what I mean? Like, wears the sweater and all that. How many coaches were wearing sweaters in 1994, 95? One guy. So why would you do that? That's one of the reasons I didn't like the movie. But if you're going to copy one, you're going to copy the most distinctive character, I guess. And that was obviously Bob. There was no one like him. There's never going to be another like him. There's never going to be another who comports himself like Bob, or who maybe never another who coaches at the level that he does. When I was on Big Ten Network the night of Bob's passing with Mike Hall, and Mike Hall brought up a stat that he thought kind of defined what Bob was as a coach, and I think it's a great one. But I thought I had a better one. His defining stat was the fact that in all his years at Indiana, and for winning more games to the point of his retirement of any coach in men's basketball history, he only produced one NBA All-Star. So he'd only had one NBA All-Star at his disposal, so to speak. But I think that even better stat to define who Bob was as a coach is the fact that since 1987, how many tournaments is that? Like 35, 36, somewhere in there. It's not as easy to do the math because of 2020 as it would, because we didn't have a tournament that year. But it's 35, 36, 37 tournaments, something like that. And since Bob won the NCAA championship in 87 with no NBA first-round picks in his rotation, that has not happened one time since. Mike Krzyzewski didn't do it. John Calipari didn't do it. Bill Self didn't do it. Jay Wright didn't do it. All the coaches who've won since have had one or more, usually more, first-round picks in their rotation. Bob had an all-time great college player in Steve Alford, who was not a first-round pick in the NBA and didn't play a long career in the NBA. He had Dean Garrett, who was a second-rounder and had and lasted in the league, but was never a hugely impactful player. I mean, he wasn't a star, let's say. He was a very good NBA player, but he wasn't changing teams. And that was all on the 87 team. No one else was, Keith Smart played a little while, but not a long while in the NBA. But no one else could do what he did. And I remember feeling bad for Pat Knight when Bob decided partway through, I think it was 2008, that he'd had enough and it was time to step aside and Pat would take over. And I'm like, here's the problem with that. Only Bob can win with those players. Bob can do it. No one else can. And now you're asking a guy who's had minimal coaching experience, head coaching experience, to win with Bob Knight's players. I mean, that's like handing me an unfinished work by Hemingway and say, go ahead, you finish it. I mean, I can write, but not like that.
Analogy. What a great analogy that was right there. Holy cow. Man, you got to write that one down. If you haven't used that one already, that's a little piece of gold right there. It was, and the motion offense, I don't want to say it's gone away, but it's basically gone away. And I've heard, because a lot of people say, well, nobody could teach it like he could. And he was a genius. He was a genius. I
don't have any problem with that descriptor.
Just his people that are able to just do things in certain areas. It's mind-boggling. There's no doubt. You can look through the annals of sports, and there are people that are just great coaches. And if you don't think coaching makes a difference, you're nuts. Bob Knight's a perfect example of that.
I think Mike Krzyzewski is the greatest coach in college basketball history because of what he constructed and the period that he constructed it over, the length. Final Four in '86, Final Four in 2012. I mean, that's basically almost my entire lifetime, or certainly my career span. But they used to have this thing when I was younger called IROC. It was
International Racing
Champions. And the idea was to take the car out of it, so to speak. Everybody has the same car, and let's see who's the best driver. Well, you can't really do that in any sport. But for me, like if you had an IROC basketball coaching. Like everybody somehow had the same 5 players or the same 7 players or whatever. The guys to me who would be at the front of the line when the race was over are Bob Knight, Larry Brown, and Rick Pitino. They're the old Bum Phillips thing. They can take urine and beat his in. That to me, those are the guys that are the best at that, at taking that. They all had, different flaws and therefore different results. I mean, Larry's, constant movement, Rick Pitino's up and down, circumstances, and then Bob's, his what we talked about before, the
motion
temper,
offense,
if you want to call it
that.
But they all had that ability to take whatever you gave them, they were going to make it the best it could possibly be. And I think that, Bob, we can argue about which one would be the best. I mean, Larry has the advantage of having done it with the among the most improbable lineups at the NCAA and NBA level. I mean, his 2004 Pistons championship team isn't like any of the last 30. The Kansas team, Danny, okay, all-time great, but then there were the miracles, not all-time greats. And then you have Bob with that 87 team, which, again, Steve Alford was an amazing college player. When I wrote my book on the Legends of College Basketball and the top 100 players, he was in the top 40. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but he was in the top 40. Because he was that great. But who else do you remember for that team? I mean, you know the names because you're an IU person. I know the names because it was my first Final Four. But
Steve Isle. I mean,
Steve Isle's one of my faves.
Rick Calloway was a starter that did not score a point in the national championship game. I think I've got to go back. I'd have to pull it up real quick. I think, if I could be wrong, maybe only 4 players scored in that game for Indiana.
Wow,
is that possible?
That's easy to figure out, but I did not know that.
John, pull that up instead of making us do that. But I think I remember Ricky Calloway not scoring in that game. If it wasn't that game, it was one of the others leading up to it. But that was the system at work. I mean, Steve Alford's going to take the shots.
Yes.
He's smart as a secondary. You've got Dean Garrett and Daryl Thomas besides Ricky Calloway.
You're right. Ricky, only 4 players scored. You're right. Ricky did not score. Joe Hillman off the bench. Steve Isle played 13 minutes, set a bunch of screens, did not score. Todd Meyer and Craig Smith. That's it. That was the whole group.
That has ever happened before. I mean, I'm sure it could have happened before, but there is no damn way in Hades that has ever happened since and will happen again. I can't imagine.
Yes. And it's just, like I said, it just shows what Bob was capable of doing as a coach. There was no one like him, and there were very few at his level.
I don't know why I always do this, but it's just fun. I always play this over and over. I can't hear it right now, but this is just I play this every time that I have Brian Evans on. Oh, I missed it. That was geared towards Brian Evans. Not every time Brian's on. I just love that. It's just he's sitting there all calm, but he sees something, and this was on the other end that was going on, and yeah, it was just crazy. But I'm able to compartmentalize the greatness, the success, the demons. Hey, I know that he was that he had this side to him, and I know a lot of things that most fans don't, but there's also a lot of things that I still don't know, and I know that. But I'm able to compartmentalize his coaching, his success, his demons. I can put the person that he was to a side. He had things that he did that were great that people don't know about.
Yes,
and that's a thing that is left out of there. But just the icon that basketball lost, and the worst thing is, it sucks on how it played out, on how he was not able. Good thing, it's grateful that he was able to come back.
Yes,
but that should have happened long before. When you do what he did,
people tried, Jim. People tried.
I know. It was on. He was just too stubborn. He would not relent, and it's a shame because, man, he deserved that. He took that away from himself.
He did, but I tend to look at it more from the positive that it did happen, and he got to have that afternoon. Although it would have helped if the Hoosiers won that game, but he got to have that afternoon, and everybody was there. I mean, everybody came that could come. Among his former players, everyone that could come and wanted to be a part of that was able to do that.
I mean, Mark Cuban came in for this.
Yeah,
Sage Steele was there. This was a major deal for him coming.
But for me, it was more about Isaiah was there, and I remember I was in Bloomington for a celebration. I believe it was the '91 champs. I can't remember what anniversary it would have been. It would have been since I moved here. So I'm pretty sure it was the '91 champs. It could have, it could have been the '87 champs, maybe 30 years out. Maybe that's what it was. But I remembered being there and writing that Bob should have been there, and he should have been, that he needed to be there. And the players talked about how they wished he was there. And so I'm glad that, instead of us sitting here saying, boy, that never happened, it did. That afternoon in 2020, with everybody giving him a standing ovation and him being able to engage with the crowd, I think it was a blessing. I'm glad he had that moment. I'm glad IU basketball had that moment. And IU fandom had that moment. And I think between that and Mike Woodson being hired, a lot of what held back Indiana basketball for basically 20 years was erased. I think that I think there were there were mistakes made and games that weren't won by Coach Crean and Coach Miller, and obviously I think that Kelvin Sampson is one of the great coaches in college basketball, but hiring him in 2006 with an open investigation at Oklahoma was not the right move for Indiana. It was a totally tone-deaf move by the administration. But all those coaches, they were held back to some degree, and Mike Davis certainly most foremost, because he was the one who followed immediately, by the anger.
How hard was that? How hard was that?
Yeah. They were all held back to some degree by the anger and resentment of a portion of the fan base toward the dismissal of Bob. And I think that afternoon in 2020, and then now the hiring of Mike Woodson as one of his successors has removed that element. I think IU basketball now succeeds or fails on the basis of the people involved. And I think it has basically a full, it has a clean slate. And I think we're seeing that clean slate has helped. It's gotten them, it's helped them get into the tournament the last 2 years. It's helped them recruit at a really high level, both in the high school ranks and in the transfer portal. And we'll see whether it is able to propel them back toward the position on the national stage that the fan base longs to occupy.
Well, and not only that, how important it is that when this time came and Bob Knight passed, how important it was that Mike Woodson was the guy in that position. There may not be another person, you could say Quinn Buckner, but Quinn didn't coach. So
right.
There may not be a more important person to have been in the position of head coach than Mike Woodson. He loved Mike. They had a great relationship. He was on, one of those teams. He did not get to win a national title. Unfortunately, he was not there in 81, left in 80, but it was so important. And now you've added Calbert Chaney and oh my God, Jordan Hulls, whose grandfather was on Bob Knight's initial staff. I mean, there is nothing to bring that. You want to talk about coming full circle.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think, Mike also, I think the stage of Mike's career, I think it's really helpful to get this thing back on track. And because he's not looking forward to trying to coach the Hoosiers for 20 years. He wants to get it, he wants to get this back. He wants to get it to where it should be and coach it for however long he feels like it. But it's not like he's trying to be there, like I said, into 2040. It's not, that's not the idea. The idea is let's make IU again. And then someone maybe who does have that idea in mind. But I think his age, his temperament, the longer I see him operate in that position, the more convinced I am that he was the right person at the right time.
Mike, you've got a piece out right now, as I just talked about, college basketball rankings that in the Sporting News, worth a read always, of course. Anything else that you've got coming up?
Well, we'll be following the Michigan developments. Obviously, I'm sure I'll have something to say either in advance of or in reaction to whatever comes Michigan's way from the Big Ten. And we'll have our All-America team out, believe Tuesday, in time for the Champions Classic. It will shock you to know
I'm nominating myself.
There's a player from this state that's on that team. It'll shock you.
I'm nominating myself for an honorable mention. But hey, go. Thank you, Mike DeCourcy. Make sure go to the Sporting News. It's free, and give Mike DeCourcy a follow with the Big Ten Network as well, as his duties will be coming up. Mike, thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate you.
Always a pleasure, Jim. And thanks to the person who shouted out my Point Park history there before at the start of the show.
Oh, we get that every time. Fred is on you, man. He's over in Pennsylvania, and he's on it every time. Awesome. Appreciate you. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio in the next hour. Mike Nizelak from the Bloomington Herald-Times will join us, and my former producer, Justin Kaelin, as we continue celebrating over 1,500 episodes of ISB Radio and over 2 million YouTube views. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market? Well, I kind of screwed you there. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't do anything wrong.
Well, we went long.
I haven't heard from Mike Nizelak. I don't know if you can reach out to him or not, but I haven't heard from him at all. I tried seeing if
was he scheduled to be on at 10:10?
He was.
What? Was it 9? It's 9:30.
It's 9:30 now.
Oh. I'll reach out to him.
But it's okay though.
It's okay. Dude, I haven't taken a breath, so yeah, there's plenty to talk to. He's great though. I love having him on.
Oh, he just responded. He just said he can't. He said he can't do today, but he can start coming on regularly next week, and he hadn't got a chance to get back to you. He said sorry.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
Cool. All right. That solves that.
Gives me a time to take a breath. Gee whiz. I mean, all it would take is 2 more guests, and we'd be 3 hours long. Oh, I'm not kidding. Not kidding. Not going to kid you. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture. Well, that was a good segment. Not at all what I had planned it to be.
I know. I remember coming because I stepped out at the very beginning of it, and I was like, they're not even talking about current Indiana basketball. They're talking about Bob Knight again.
Well, it was not. Well, I knew that I had not gotten to talk to Mike about it, and he's one of those people that, dude, he's been around for 25 years in a highly professional manner, and I wanted to talk to him about it. Mm-hmm. Also because I know that he is very he knows where to come from. The it's called the land of neutrality.
Yes.
Able to recognize all of the deals. As I mean, I try to too. It's hey, let the fans celebrate what they want to celebrate. The only thing that pisses me off is like if you look at the postings around people with the clip with Dan Dockage. Dan is of course is going to not only be honest, but he's going to be honest in a way that
people don't like necessarily.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he did. But you know what? It's still honest.
Yep. MyStonecrestLiving.com. That's MyStonecrestLiving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by The Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It's hour 2 here at the Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway of a very, very gorgeous and emerald green golf club at Eagle Point Studios. It's incredible how that course looks. We're in November and it looks like my old homeland of Ireland. And speaking of which, they're going into the last days of the early bird memberships. Just go to eaglepoint.com. It's pretty crazy. You can, I think, what did I figure it out? You could play like 4 rounds a month and you break even. So check into that. eaglepoint.com. Early bird special going on right now. Appreciate everybody hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. If I did not get to, there's Rudy the boxer. Sanders, he thinks Sanders is the biggest phony in college football. I don't think he's a phony, but what I do think is he's using his. I mean, obviously, he's not an unintelligent person. Potentially one of the greatest athletes to ever play the game because he was one of the greatest athletes to ever play baseball too. Just a special athlete. We've seen people try to do that. Michael Jordan, for example. It's not easy. It's just not easy. Most athletes are just tremendous. Great athletes are just tremendous. Great athletes. That's why you see them. They're great golfers. Because hand-eye coordination and all this, they have something that us regular folk don't have. But that's that. Herbal thinks that if he was hardball, he'd consider. He's not going to have to consider it. I think that he is going to. I think he might get a one-way ticket out. But I don't know how interested the NFL is going to be in accepting a coach that was basically run out of college football, if that turns out to be the case, because of cheating. And Michigan fans and whomever can do whatever they want, say whatever they want. I don't give a crap. The investigation's got to be completed. Yes, of course it does. But let me tell you, These are not just allegations. There's already proven allegations. Proven that he bought all these tickets, attended all these games, photo evidence of him doing some of this stuff. And there's more. I guarantee there's more that hasn't come out yet. They're holding on to that. This Central Michigan thing, man, if someone on the Central Michigan staff, who ironically plays Michigan next year, if it turns out that someone on staff assisted Connor Stallions in accessing the sideline wearing the same exact apparel as the coaches, that's going to be a whole different situation. The NCAA, the president of Michigan, basically begging the NCAA president, please, I implore you to wait upon the completion of the NCAA investigation before we make any rash decisions. Well, of course you do, because you know the NCAA is not going to do jack squat forever. And then they may not do anything at all, like they did with Bill Self, like they did with North Carolina. See, the good thing is they've gotten rid of Connor Stallions. And let me tell you, I promise you, somebody, not Michigan, but in Michigan, somebody, they're paying him what's in the old days is called hush money. He's already made the comment that no coach on staff knew about. John, do you have a bleep ready?
Just don't say the cuss word. Just bleep it yourself.
Bull beep. It is complete and total bull beep. No way that's possible. The purchases, the paper trail. I think he has been seen talking to Michigan coaches on the sidelines during games. I guess when he's not out scouting another opponent. I want to see if there are any other Big Ten teams. And I'm begging to see. I'm hoping Indiana was one of those just because of so I can laugh at that. But you did notice in that Michigan game, and this is before the Penn State game, Indiana jumped out to a good start. 7-0 lead. First team to lead Michigan after the first quarter of this season. Things changed after that, but did it have anything to do with that? Not that seemed you would have been able to need to scout Indiana. Who knows? But then you look and see what they did at Penn State. I mean, they were some coaching decisions away from potentially being in a position to win that game, which would have been the biggest shock in college football this season and for a few seasons. Indiana followed that up with a win over a mediocre Wisconsin team, but a win nonetheless. Their level of play is increased. They've got 3 games left now. They have to win out to become bowl eligible, which means they have to win on the road at Illinois. I think that's this Saturday, correct? And then host Michigan State. Is that right, John?
That is correct. Yep. Illinois on the road, Michigan State at home, and then Purdue on the road.
Then they head up to north, where they're definitely better than Purdue right now. I'll say that. I think that they're better than Michigan State, but Michigan State's coming off of a big win over Nebraska. Illinois is a team I am not going to say they're better than. I think there's some equality there, and that game is on the road. That now becomes, well, at the moment, that's the hardest. Well, the next, you know what the hardest game is? The next game. every game is going to be hard from here out because those teams need to win those games as well. Purdue does not want to lose to Indiana. They've had a terrible season. The only thing that can make that worse is to lose at home to Indiana, a team that has not been good, and allow Indiana to reach bowl eligibility because of it. Illinois has not had the season that they want because Ryan Walters left to become the coach at Purdue, and their defense has suffered. But they're at home. They need this win. Brett Bielema is not wanting his second year to go like it has. Trying to pull their schedule up real quick or the record to see if they're close to bowl eligibility. They lost.
Illinois is 3-5. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. So they would have to win out.
I mean, they can afford one more loss. I don't know who's left on their schedule, but yes.
No, they can't. You got 3 wins. You got 3 weeks left.
Yeah, but you have 5 losses. You can lose one more time to be 6-6.
But not if they only have 3 games left.
Maybe I looking at their record before last. Maybe they're 4-5. Let me see who.
Yeah, they have Northwest. They end the season with Northwestern. They have to go to Iowa the week before that.
Excuse me, they're 4-5. So they do have 3 games left, but they're not 3-5.
And so
like I thought.
They're 2 games from bowl eligibility. They cannot afford a loss to Indiana because they have to go to Iowa the next week. So this is a huge game for Illinois. So this is big for both teams. Makes it exciting, at least. And the level that Indiana's play has risen to has made it. The defense playing with a bunch of guys in the secondary that have risen to the challenge. Indiana basketball kicks off the season tonight against Florida Gulf Coast. Yesterday, we heard Mike Woodson in his presser as we carried that live here on the program. What will Indiana look like in this first real game? We saw improvement without question against Marion, but that's Marion. That was a team of, I swear, it reminded me of Milan with Ollie running around in the front out there. And speaking of Hoosiers, last night watching my favorite football program, Peyton and Eli do Monday Night Football, and we weren't 10 minutes in, and I forget what Eli Manning was talking about, but he was talking about a play, and he just said, hey, that's just like Norman Dale telling Strap, don't shoot the ball unless you're under the basket by yourself, which was hilarious. Then they were going over these different quarterback signals, what this meant. That was hilarious. There was disco that Peyton mimicked, all of these things. Eli would give him, well, what's disco? And he'd say like this, go. But anyway, he came up with one, and it was a shooting motion. He mimicked a shooting motion. He goes, that was Indiana. That was called Indiana. So he mimicked it with a shooting motion. He goes, and in honor of Bob Knight. So, I mean, then there was another reference later. So they did not had some Indiana references right into the show. And they had Arnold. They had Arnold on last night as one of their guests, which was pretty funny. Derek Queen decision looming, as I mentioned before. I think that one's just going to kind of pop up. It's not going to be this week-long, hey, I'm going to do this in a week. I could be wrong, but I think it's going to pop up and within days and say, just like on a Wednesday, and say, I'm going to announce this on Friday. He's down to a list of 4 that includes Kansas and Houston, but they are widely considered to not be on there. And whoever wins this battle can also use that as a little marketing ploy to say, hey, we beat so-and-so. Kansas and Houston for this. And if it happens and turns out to be Indiana, again, that would give them a third 5-star win over Kansas. Not that Kansas is hurting. They're not. But it's good for marketing. So you got that going for you, which is nice. We've got to take a break. When we come back, Chronic Hoosiers will not join us today because he's on assignment, but we've got lots more right after this on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper down on Anna Maria Island, Florida. For all of our Florida listeners and those of you that are traveling, man, all I hear are great things about the food, about the fun. So check that out. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Now, damn it, where did that go? Well, I hate when I lose stuff. Oh, a good friend of mine, Michael Gargiulo, is the host of the NBC affiliate in New York. Their morning news program has been forever. And
Oh, yeah?
Going to get to see Michael Gargiulo. We worked together at WLKY in Louisville. Just setting up, get to see him up there for.
I didn't realize until last night that Denny Crum's wife worked at WDRB.
Well, she worked at WHAS first.
Oh, yeah?
We almost went out on a date.
I think you told me that before.
Before she was married, of course.
Yeah.
Susan Sweeney, great lady. But yeah, then she worked on WDRB.
Yeah, they honored Denny Crum last night at the Yum Center, and she spoke at halftime. By the way, they barely won against UMBC.
Did they?
They won by like 2. I can't remember what the final score was, like 91-89 or something. Let me see what it was.
Damn it.
And them scoring that much is the reason my parlay didn't hit, which kind of sucks. But hey, what you gonna do? What was the final score? That they won 94-93 against UMBC. Louisville escapes.
Well, remind me when we get back, because
it's the first time that Kenny Payne has had a winning record as a head coach.
What are they? 1-0?
1-0, yeah.
Who did they beat?
UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Hey, they have made the NCAA tournament before. That's why
Virginia. They beat Virginia as a 16 seed.
Oh, that's who did that. Yeah, that's why I knew that.
All right, here we go.
Make a gourmet meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Tuesday. Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline, by the way. Lots of comments. Hit the like button. Don't forget. And Also, make sure that if you are not subscribed, that you do so, because it makes it's great. It's great help for us. It gets the show out there to more people, and it's free. It takes just hit that button, man. It's all it takes. Because I've noticed that I keep saying it kind of in a. I don't mean to brag, but we're proud of the fact that we added this show to YouTube just in 2021, 2 years ago, and we're well over 2 million views because of all of you guys that can't find us on radio, but most of our viewers are non-subscribers. So hit that subscribe button. Trying to get, I've got a video of Xavier Johnson, and I don't know how long ago this was. I'll have to find that out, but I'm trying to get that loaded up, as long as we don't get dinged for a song that's on it, because that hits us a lot of times. That's why you don't hear topical music of today. Songs will get copyright infringements on that stuff, and it's a pain in the butt. We'll work to get that on tomorrow somehow. Justin Kaelin's going to join me in the next segment. He was my first producer for the first 2 years of the program when we started out all by our lonesome. Let me tell you, I would hate to hear the first probably 6 months of the show. It is vastly different, I would imagine. I would hope that I've gotten a little better over the last 7 years on this, although I used to be a TV sports anchor. This is completely different. This is, constant. When you're a TV sports anchor, you're on air for like 5 minutes, and that's broken up a lot of times by video packages that you put together and whatnot. But looking forward to talking to Justin. He's down in Southern Indiana, of course, still with WXVW, where we started on 1450, the Big X down there. They carry the IU games in Southern Indiana. I mentioned Dairy Queen decision looming, a huge one for Indiana, because right now they still only have one commitment for that 24 class. And adding a second one and adding it a 5-star, and it's not just because he's a 5-star. He's a legit talent. He is, I don't want to compare him to Malik Renew, but he's a talent, man. That's why he's a 5-star. And I can't predict it. I don't have anything. If I know, if something gets to me, that's when I say, hey, I'm pretty confident on this one. I've got nothing yet on this. The guy, and Montverde, that's tough to get stuff out of there. You have to go through, generally. They have a marketing department at Montverde Academy. And I remember when I was down there a couple of years ago to cover the Montverde Invitational, when Jalen Hutchifino was there, Dairy Queen was there, Malik Renew was there. I had to submit my questions to them, which I was like, what? Which was a little aggravating, but you just write down some general BS questions. But once you get to go do the actual interview, they're not like sitting there standing over you. So you did what you want to do. But yeah, it's a professional environment. Those guys are already in that frame of mind, being treated like professionals, but acting like professionals. And Jalen Hutchifino was the epitome of that. I'll tell you that. But that's also a great feather in Mike Whitson's hat, because he was not a projected first-round draft pick, and he became that at IU. So Malik Renew is looking incredible. Man, you can see the growth in him this year, stepping out and hitting those 3-point shots. He just looks smooth doing it. He looks comfortable. That's the word, comfortable. So that was the question I asked Mike Woodson yesterday. What does that bring to you? Well, I'll tell you what it brings. Well, he said it, but man, it can make life hell on opposing defenses, because let's say you've got Malik Renew and Kaelin Ware in the game at the same time, and they're not out on the perimeter at the same time, but both are going out there. Somebody has got to follow them out there. There has to be a big that's on them. You're not going to switch off to a 6'2" guard on these guys. So this should give Indiana a whole new set of weapons, whether it's allowing Xavier to get to the rim, whether it's to open up other shooting lanes for Mackenzie Mbako. I'm not confident that Trey Galloway is going to increase his shooting, because for one thing, there are guys on the team that are obviously a little bit better. And that includes Mackenzie Mbako. That includes Malik Renew. And with those types of different options, I just don't think he's going to force it. And he'll pass on it and try to make those shots to someone else. But that kind of makes him a quasi point guard. And I've said this before, and I'm not dissing. I'm just wondering, what is his role really going to be? Because as a 2, you should be a scoring option. You should be a definite scoring option. And early on, so we haven't seen, there's not a lot to gauge it by. I'm not going, especially right now, maybe their intent was to get the newer guys infused into the offense, what's going on. But I'm going to be curious to see what happens at the 2 spot for Indiana. To me, that's the weakest link. And again, I don't mean to diss anyone there. You've just got strong pieces around it, which is a positive thing. Even Xavier, we've seen, he hasn't forced things. He has been a point guard, but he also has pieces around him that he has not used to having. You know, he's not used to having Mackenzie Mbako. That, man, those corner threes he shot looked really nice. And he's very, very athletic on top of it. Malik Renew looked great stepping out, but he can play inside. And then Kaelin Ware has been a force in the second half. It's like he kind of gets a feel for what's going on in the first half. I'm not sure he asserts himself, and either he is getting a discussion at halftime, because in both preseason games, he was the guy. 12 second half points against UIndy, 15 second half points against Marion. But of course, those were teams that are not at the level of what he's going to be facing, even Florida Gulf Coast. But it's different. It's different people. It's a different team. It's different style that you're going to have to go against. So it'll be interesting to see what Indiana is able to get done tonight. I don't expect a loss or anything like that. I don't even know if this game will end up being close. It's going to be interesting to see what Indiana does, how they attack. I want to see what Trey Galloway does, what CJ Gunn does. He's been getting ample minutes at that 2 spot. He actually if this was normal, he would have a chance to take that spot over, but that's not going to happen. Trey Galloway is senior leader, and Mike Whitson loves his stability, I guess. He is very stable. He's a stabilizing force, but I still think you need more from that than just to stabilize. But what the hell do I know? I've never coached at that level, so I'm not going to pretend that I know something that I don't. These are all just opinions based on what I see. Robert says he's anxious to see how comfortable they are against UConn, Maryland, Auburn, and Kansas. Well, of course, those will be the real preseason test. Hell, those would be the toughest games they play all season. You're playing against the reigning national champion. You're playing against a Big Ten opponent early on that beat you at home last year, not back in Maryland. You're playing against the number one team in the country in Kansas, who is, they've already lost, but didn't count. Purdue's lost, didn't count. But that does show me that I think this is going to be another exciting year in college basketball because of the uncertainty. This is the new world, and I love it. I'm here for it. Losses coming at least expected time. Michigan State losing last night in overtime at home to James Madison, 79-76. I think they were one of 20 from behind the arc. I mentioned earlier, the first AP top 5 team to lose their home opener to an unranked team since Kentucky lost to Western Kentucky in 2001. 22 years it's been. And Michigan State known for not being at their best at the beginning of the year. But it's a little more shocking when they are thought to be as good as they are. Many of us have seen them as a potential Big Ten champion this year, which they still are because of the talent that they have. Purdue's already lost. Doesn't count. It was an Arkansas team, so we don't know how much that Matt Painter was playing pieces just to see what they do. And while I'm sure that they wanted to win, they also know that it's not going to cost them anything other than chatter. People like me chatting. But I'm not going to because, hey, it was against Arkansas. It's a hell of a team right there. Indiana's second unit. What do they get done? CJ Gunn, I mentioned him. Gabe Cupps. That's a great positive for Indiana that they did not have last year. When Jalen Hood-Schifino went out of the game, Indiana was screwed at point guard. They did not have a point guard. And this year they do. And they have one that is not afraid to move the ball, that is not afraid to take a shot, one that is going to continue to learn as the season goes on in Gabe Cupps. So they're solid there. Anthony Walker, very athletic. Man, he brings some athletic, more additional athletic ability to this team. Peyton Sparks, we haven't seen a lot from him. Caleb Banks has been Caleb Banks. Didn't get to play in the first game. Second game, he's like, I'm in. When I'm in, I'm playing. And was 2 of 4 from behind the 3-point line. I don't remember hardly seeing him shoot a 3-pointer last year. He was always down low when the ball goes up, trying to rebound. Same thing the other night. Man, that ball's up. It was like he was trying to rebound as if his life depended on it. Gotta love that. That's energy. When you have energy coming off the bench like that, man, that's a bonus. Speaking of bonuses, we got to take a break. Justin Kaelin, my former producer on Indiana Sports, original producer for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm sure he'll have a good story to tell. Speaking of stories, daggone it, when Mike was with us, I'll try to think of what it was in the break, but looking forward to it. Coming back, Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville, Indiana, right off of I-65 on Veterans Parkway. Pizza, burgers, beer, great place to catch an IU game or more. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Go ahead and message Justin Kaelin just to make sure he knows. Oh, never mind. Here he comes now.
Oh, there he is.
Come on.
Turn your phone sideways there, I can't think of
all right, that works.
Yep. I'm trying to think of the
volume.
Okay, you got your volume turned all the way up?
Let me check here. It is now. Sound better?
It's up all the way on my end, too. It's as loud as he's going to get.
Good enough.
Good enough?
Yep, he's good. He's fine.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I would see if you could turn it a little bit towards the corner to get rid of that. There you go. To get rid of the perfect. To get rid of the sun behind you.
There we go.
Beautiful. Wow. The look. I have not seen this look. I hate to talk about it. I hate to talk about it before we go on.
Just wait. Just say. Just don't ruin it. If you want to bring it up for the show, it'll be good.
Yeah, I've got a good rebuttal for your response.
Man, why is he so quiet? I wish
Do you happen to have any headphones?
Hang on, let me check.
Yeah, that might help a little bit.
He's at the damn radio station.
I know, and he's using. Isn't that funny?
Well, he forgot his laptop. Number one.
Oh, okay.
He texted me earlier. There should have been there. I wonder if there's a way to. Well, no, not video. You couldn't do it.
All right, let's see if this helps.
Doesn't have a mic, but is that better?
Oh no, much better. I don't know how it fixed
Okay.
it, but it sounds amazing now.
Awesome. Okay.
Just get rid of that sun. There you go. You're in the new studio, it looks like.
Yep. Sure are.
Moved out of the ghetto.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let me ask you.
It's awesome.
Oh, wait, to ask this question.
We're ready to come back. I'll go ahead and pull us back in.
All returning students, no matter where you go to school, at the Golf Club at Eagle Point, students can play for the rest of 2023 for just $299. That's right, play as many rounds as you like for just $299. That's better than a birdie. But you don't have to be a student to play at Eagle Point. Go online to set your tee time or call 812-824-4040. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. It's November 7th. Greatly appreciate you being with us, no matter how you're listening, whether on radio in Evansville or the region or Fort Wayne or on YouTube around the world. We have been celebrating a bit this month. We're somewhere over our 1500th episode now, as the show began way back in December of 2017. My first producer, Justin Kaelin, with us right now. And how are you, man? Look like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Got this new look. I haven't seen this look. And your thumb's in the way of your camera, by the way. But yeah, he's got this last time I saw him, he had hair. For those of you that are listening on radio, obviously you can't see this, but last time I saw him, he had hair and no facial growth. Now the hair is gone from the head and it's moved down to your face.
Well, it's funny you nailed it, Jim. I what it was is I saw Dan Dockich on your show last week for the Bob Knight tribute, and I was jealous. I thought he looked really good on camera with his bald head, so I wanted to give it a try. But no, in all reality, you nailed it from the jump. I have always had a fascination with wanting to go as Stone Cold Steve Austin for Halloween. I've always also wondered what my head looked like bald, so I decided I would go all out and just do it all in the same year. So I shaved my head to go as Stone Cold Steve Austin for Halloween.
That's a very ballsy thing to do, because most people would just, because he has hair. He's not bald. He didn't need to do it. So
right.
So now is the question: does it stay or does it go?
You know, that's something I've been torn with for the last couple of weeks, or since I did it. Really, is there. Sometimes when I look in the mirror, I'm like, man, I really love this look, and then other times I'm like, this is not for me. So I think ultimately I'm going to let the hair grow back, but do not be surprised if I try to pull this maneuver again in the summertime.
Well, the funny thing is, it doesn't look bad.
No,
there's
it doesn't.
no way.
No.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead and congratulate yourself there. You can see why we used to have so much fun. You couldn't pay me. Well, you could, I guess. But my hair currently, you can't tell because I'm wearing a hat right now, but it's longer than it's ever been. Not Dugan Ryan long. Which he's gone full rock star.
Absolutely.
With, Dugan Ryan, the former owner of the station, now the program director, I think, still with them as the station was bought. But anyway, he let his hair grow, and I'd seen him come. I'm like, holy crap! It's like down to the shoulders, which I couldn't. I don't think I can do it. I haven't cut my hair in like 5 months, but it's just like it reaches a point and it says, this is all you're getting. You're done.
What's happened to you, Jim? You used to be clean cut, once a month haircut. Now you're just letting yourself go. What's up?
Busy. I've gotten so much busier, but I have an appointment tomorrow for my first haircut in like 5 months. So we'll see what we do with that. We'll display that on the show. But Justin Kaelin is still with WXVW, the Big X, 1450 AM down in Southern Indiana. They carry the IU games there, of course. And Justin does a lot of play-by-play basketball games there. Who do you cover mostly?
Oh man, Jim, I am so busy now. I am working for Big X.
Oh my God,
I'm
so busy.
No, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I love being busy. I absolutely love being busy, especially this time of the year. I work for a couple different media companies as well. I do some coverage for Midway, basketball and football. So I've kind of been all over the place in terms of play-by-play. But really with Big X, my main role here is still producer. I'm producing about 6 hours a day. So, yeah, I've been busy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it.
That's Robert commenting on tonight's game. In our open, 5 Left says jabroni. That's a clip in our. You didn't hear the opening of the show, probably. I don't know if you've heard the opening of the show before, but that's one of the clips we use in that. You'd be surprised how many questions I've had sent to me asking me, "What's a jabroni?" And I'm like, "Really?" But anyway. Fun times. Of course, Justin's an IU fan. Start with football. Last week's win, huge win for Indiana, and now the rest of the season, it's in their hands.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Jim. I really haven't followed Indiana football that closely just because of the product that we're getting on the field. I haven't. It's not something that I want to sit
Boo! Down. You're not a fan, and I'm not a fan. I'd stay neutral, but that's not a fan, man. No excuse.
On Saturdays or no, I mean I understand. No, I mean, it hasn't been all that fun lately. And the game Saturday was fun, though. I watched the game. It was a good time. Glad they got the win. They do not beat Wisconsin, so that was a nice sight to see.
Absolutely. Of course,
But yeah,
tonight,
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm excited about the season, because I'm not. It's been rough.
Absolutely. Basketball starting tonight, so we'll see how that goes. But Indiana Sports Beat, it did not originally start as Indiana Sports Beat. We actually started as a show called Morning Madness, and then I decided to change the format.
Your medicine.
Which, oh boy, do I miss that. We had the greatest opening and closing of the show. I loved it. Gosh dang it, do I wish I could still use that. I just love that song. I think it's perfect. And I think we need to figure out a way to do it, John, to where we can get away with it and not block it out on YouTube or something, because we get these stupid copyright hits by doing it. Although the radio stations, it's fine to play on because they're radio stations. But I want to go back to, what are your recollections of the very beginning? I was like, man, I would hate to hear what I sounded like for the first, I don't even know how long back then, as everybody would. It's like looking at yourself in the 7th grade or something. You're like, damn, look at that picture.
It's rough. I've got some clips from early Sports Beat days on my computer. Back and listen to them. Probably 2-3 weeks ago, I pulled one up and I was listening to it, and it's not as bad as you would think. You were in the beginning, Jim. That's what I always remember, is you were kind of hard on yourself because you've always been the type of guy that is strive for perfection, and you just didn't feel like you were given that in the beginning. But I was always of the mindset that you're a radio pro. You've always done a great job. I thought you did a great job back then, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little clunky. I mean, we were working through some things. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. We were going from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. That was brutal, and to be honest with you, not one of your best business decisions you've made.
Well, I didn't make the decision. It was just how it started, the opportunity. But let me tell you, there is nobody that hated getting up at 5 a.m. more than this guy. That's not my milieu. But John, the producer, can step in. I think you can comment to exactly what Justin just said, because John is always on my ass about what, John?
About being on time?
No, I'm always on time.
About being hard on yourself too, because that's another thing. I know that's what you're talking about.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. That following up on his comment.
Yeah, that hasn't changed a lick, Justin, for sure.
Well, that's just who Jim is. He'll always be that way. He always, as good as things are now, he always wants it to be better, and that's why I appreciate Jim Coyle.
Well, I appreciate both you guys saying that, but no doubt I am my harshest critic. But thank you first of all for, producer is so important, and Justin was great at helping me navigate that. Just like John is, you have no how important these guys are to me. And I probably don't say it enough on air. So thank you, Justin, for that back then. Although that was your first time being producer as well. It was kind of all right, it was like let's do this.
Yeah, we both jumped in. If I'm being honest, I had no desire to want to be a radio producer throughout my career, but I'm glad I took that dive. I'm glad we went that step, because I learned how fun it can be. Because a lot of times as a producer, you hear the role producer and you're like, oh, okay, well, all they do is produce the show. But it's much more than that. You get to interact, you get to talk, you get to have your opinions heard. So it's almost like you're a co-host with just a little extra responsibility. So that's something I've had to learn to really appreciate throughout the years. And that started with you, because I mean, without your show back in the day, I would have never been in the spot where I now where I can really appreciate being a radio producer.
Well, and you were basically a co-host, because when we didn't have a guest, it was you and I interacting about things, because you're not just, you weren't a producer. You had done play-by-play already. You had been down in Jacksonville doing it. A graduate of IU, by the way, people. But yeah, he was someone that had done that. So it was a great mix, and it was fun. I had a good time, other than that getting up part. That still sticks with me. But luckily I don't have to do that anymore. But
Jim, I'll there are still so many times where I'm sharing stories from back in the Jim Coyle days, whether it was our road trip up to Ann Arbor and subsequent Big Ten title championship game that same night. Like that was one of the funnest days of my entire life. I'll never forget that. But that's what I miss about doing the show with you, is we just had so many good times, and I can go on and on about all the good times we had, but I appreciate it.
What are some of the stories you just mentioned? What? Because I'm horrible about stringing that stuff together. What are some of the things?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ann Arbor trip, and I mean, just
was that
just
for
the times we
that
had
was for
together.
basketball, right?
Yeah. So we went up there for basketball, and then on the way home, we stopped in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game that night. That was a real good time. We got treated to a real good meal. We went to Huber's one time to broadcast all the remotes that we've done, just all the stuff over the years. I won't mention all the bad things, but the Matt Painter interview was a lot of fun as well for me. But yeah, just a few.
What's something funny that like went wrong? What's something that didn't go as planned that doesn't make me look like too much of a moron?
Oh man. That is tough. Aside from you, so John brought it up. You're not big on waking up early, so I'm glad that your show doesn't start until much later now. But there were just so many things where I would have to filibuster for the first 5-10 minutes because you just couldn't get out of bed in time. So those were always frustrating when I had to.
Well, it wasn't like I lived 5 minutes away either
until you arrived. That's true. No, I did live 5 minutes away. So no, I'll give you a pass on that one.
The absolute funniest story has to be, there was a show that followed us that, especially when I changed the format, I think, they are a Kentucky show. TJ and Nick Coffey and TJ Walters.
No. Nick Roush, TJ Walker.
That's what I said, Nick Roush, right? All right, I said Nick Walker. Nick Roush and TJ Walker. Anyway, they host if you're a Kentucky fan, you love that show, and it followed us, and they wanted to start their show 5 minutes earlier, which meant they wanted us to end 5 minutes earlier, and it pissed me off. I'm like, no, your show's not more important than ours. I was so mad. I yelled at them one day, or I think it was at TJ. I just yelled at TJ. Just went off and da. And I hope that they can laugh about it now, because I laugh about it because I know it was brought up not too long ago. But that was probably one of the funniest things, I think.
Yeah, and I produce for that show now, Kentucky Roll Call 7 to 9 here on Big X, and we did bring it up a couple weeks ago, and it's all water under the bridge at this point. We had a great laugh about it a few weeks ago, so yeah, it's all good now. But that was certainly an interesting morning.
Well, make sure you tell all those guys I said hello, and again, it was
of course.
What a fun learning. Tell Dugan I said hello. He gave me this. Dugan gave me this opportunity, or the opportunity to start that show. He wanted to start that, and I'm grateful to him for that, because I wouldn't be doing this here now if it weren't for that. So But man,
Sure.
it was fun. I can't thank you enough. I can't believe we're well over 1,500 episodes now, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Wouldn't be here without you. We're well over 2 million views on YouTube. That's mind-boggling. We've got listeners from 50 countries on 5 continents. And I'm like, man, it's just mind-boggling. But thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on. But real quick, it's all a testament to what you've done. You, from the moment I first met you, you've been a workhorse. You've wanted to take this thing higher and higher, and you've continued to do that. So congratulations, success, and
Well, Justin, I can't thank you enough, man. Appreciate you for joining us today. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Good luck with the rest of your seasons coming up. And I can't thank everybody else enough for coming on the program today. Mike DeCourcy, of course, as always, each week from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Justin Kaelin from the Big X down there now as well. We look forward to being back tomorrow on the program. As usual, Dylan Sind, Kyle Nedenrip, Rick Bozich. Thank you, guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. John, the producer, thank you, my friend, for keeping us between the white lines. Producers are very, very important. Love you guys all. Thank you so much. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.